Hi, I'm Jess Ingleking with Soundings Fine Audio in Denver, Colorado. Today we're going to be talking about subwoofers. Alright, so the first thing I want to go over is why would you even want a subwoofer, or why do you need a subwoofer in certain cases? Well, we basically can put it into two different categories. We can talk about music subwoofers and then subwoofers for movies. And when I divide it into those two categories, I'm really talking about the job required of the sub. The sub itself may not actually be that different, but the job that it entails has some similarities. There is some overlap between the two, but there's one job specifically in movies that is specific to home theater use. So we'll start with home theater and work our way towards music. With home theater, when you hear about 5.1 or 7.1 or 7.2 theaters, that 0.1 or point whatever subwoofer, that is the LFE track. So low frequency effects are really the rumble that a lot of people think about when subwoofers come to mind, that thing that shakes the room and you feel it in your chest. That is a specific frequency just for movies. In a perfect world, if you have full range speakers in every channel, all you need the subwoofer for is to produce this rumble track that goes up to maybe 200 hertz. In a lot of cases, it may only be 120 if your subwoofer can even handle that high. Beyond that, in a theater setting, you may have speakers that can't produce a full range, and your subwoofer may have to do dual duties. Not just the low frequency effects track, but it may also have to pick up the slack for whatever channel can't produce full range. I'm talking about car crashes, gunshots, door slams, deep voices, any low bass that wasn't originally mixed for the subwoofer, but was actually designed for your speakers. Virtually all surround sound receivers and processors will have some type of bass management to offload that signal and send it to your subwoofer. That's where a lot of people have challenges. Having a subwoofer that can produce LFE tracks as well as doing dual duty with speaker support can be a real challenge. But that's what we're going to cover today. With music subwoofers, it is essentially just supporting your speakers. Most music is designed for just stereo broadcasting or just stereo mixing, a left speaker and a right speaker. If you don't have a full range speaker, which even the biggest speakers out there can't produce true full range, your subwoofer needs to be able to get below that and augment whatever else was on the track that your speakers aren't able to produce. So we'll break this down and talk about how you can choose the right subwoofer, how to connect it, and even how to place it. So deep bass is what most people are looking for when they're adding a sub. But what is deep bass? And how does that actually work? What's the right size subwoofer? What's the right type of subwoofer? And that's a dynamic question. It's a hard one to just say, this is the one you need. Very room dependent, very system dependent. And so we'll start out by how do you create these large bass waves? Because the bass waves are bigger than what your standard tweeter is going to produce, for example. So to get these low notes, to oversimplify, you either need a large diameter driver or you need long excursion, or maybe both. And that's what subwoofer manufacturers utilize to get whatever low frequency their subs can produce. So it's not just the size of the woofer, how many woofers, or excursion that affects the bass. It's also the enclosure itself. There is a relationship between how big the box is and how much bass you can produce. Let's just say bigger is better all the way around. If you're trying to produce low notes, a large woofer with lots of power and a big box is generally going to produce more bass at lower notes. Just kind of the way it is. We'll see a lot of small box subwoofers in the industry, and that has as much to do with being practical. Most people don't want to put a 4 cubic foot box or 6 cube box in a living room. It's just not going to fit behind the couch. So we do a lot of fancy engineering to make sure that we can get a more modest size enclosure so it can sit up next to the TV. It can fit next to the couch. Along with the smaller enclosure size, we also have ported boxes versus sealed boxes. We have DSP in the plate amplifiers. Most small subwoofers actually have some type of DSP boost to overcome these engineering challenges. So what is actually better, a ported box or a sealed box? Again, I don't think it's which is better. It's what type of trade-offs did the engineer choose when designing the thing. In a nutshell, ported boxes are going to have punchier bass and can typically play louder. They'll have a faster roll-off, meaning that once they've played their lowest note, we're not going to hear much beyond that. Where a sealed box has what they'd call a shallower roll-off. So it may be able to play a lower bass note than the same woofer in a ported box, but it's going to play it quieter. So would you rather have a little smoother bass at maybe a lower volume, or would you rather have punchier bass that might play louder? But it's not a hard and fast rule. There are many, many companies out there that produce small or large sealed enclosures. You may have to have more power to overcome what the sealed box does. A sealed box is kind of like pulling a cork out of a wine bottle. The further you get to pulling the cork out of the bottle, the more that bottle fights you. The woofer has to overcome that same vacuum of the enclosure. So you can get a sealed box to play as loud or louder than a ported box. It may just take more power. So you can't just say that a ported box isn't as good or is better than a sealed box. There are all of these different factors. You really got to look at how loud does this need to play? Does this subwoofer, is it able to get below my speakers and produce bass that is beyond what the capabilities of my speakers are? In a theater setting, will it play loud enough to produce the specifications that Dolby and DTS require? Will it pressurize the size room that I have? So how do you actually choose what size subwoofer you need? Well, we'll go back to movies versus music again. If you're lucky enough to have full range channels for all of your movie playback, then just get the biggest subs you can possibly fit in your room. Bigger is better. My experience is people who have really strong LFE in their theaters are happier with that theater experience. You could use a single 15 just at the front. We like to use multiple subs, one at the front of the room and one at the back of the room. The overwhelming majority of theaters that we design have at least that. But we have 5 subwoofers in our demo room for one of our theaters. There's been a lot of research done that's proven that when you add multiple subs, particularly in opposite corners, that actually flattens out room modes. One of the challenges with a lot of subwoofers is, will I get the bass I want in my listening position? And that has a lot to do with placement and whether your subwoofer is playing well with the room. If you use more than one sub, this kind of automatically solves the problem in a lot of ways. We can get into placement in a little bit. When it comes to your music, or when it comes to supporting the speaker and doing low range sounds that are not an LFE track, more consideration and care is involved. We want to make sure that you have enough output for your room. We want to make sure that it will play loud enough, and then that it's right sized. So if you have a pair of stand mount speakers, you may not want a 15-inch sub to try to reach up to what your speakers can do. Likewise, if you have some big, powerful floor standing speakers, a small 8-inch sub may not actually get below what your speakers can do. There may be too much overlap, and that's how you end up with boomy bass. We really go deep at Soundings when it comes to pairing up the subwoofer with the speaker. Again, multiple subwoofers is a good way to go. With music specifically, you have stereo speakers. Why would you want to go mono with the bass? Let's keep it stereo. In the mixing process and in the studio, the whole process is in stereo. There is bass just for the left and bass just for the right. It affects your imaging greatly. So we very frequently will do 2 subwoofers, for one for left, one for right, or even more. We'll start stacking them up, do 6 packs of subwoofers to enhance that low end feel and give you a true wall of sound. So it's very important you lean on your dealer, get someone involved who's had experience pairing these up, and that can make sure that you don't get a sub that's going to sound muffled or get a sub that sounds too weak for your particular application. At Soundings, it's very easy for us to pair something up. We've got lots of subwoofer models to choose from. I would encourage anyone who has questions on this to comment below or just give us a call, and we can point you in the right direction pretty quickly. So fast bass is something we get asked about a lot, and there's actually a real easy way to determine how fast a subwoofer is. And that's just look at the frequency response and see how high up in the frequency range it plays. By definition, the higher frequencies are occurring at higher speeds. So if you want a subwoofer that's going to blend better for music or have faster bass, make sure your woofer is capable of higher frequency ranges. This does a few things. It will make the blend a lot better, and it will make sure that you're going to have proper overtones. So in music, we don't just have bass thumps. I mean, some genres of music do, but if we're talking about organ notes, if we're talking about deep piano notes, low singing voices, you have overtones, you have harmonics that need to blend together. A faster subwoofer that can reach up and blend properly with your speaker will make sure that those overtones are also improved, and it's not just one note thumpy, boring bass. So when it comes to setup, I am a huge fan of corner placement. There are a lot of places online that'll say, don't put it in the corners, that's how you get boomy bass. But if we're trying to get the lowest notes, we want the most reinforcement we can possibly get. Instead of just having the floor reinforcement, we also get two sidewalls. And so if you just drop it in the corner, yeah, it can be kind of flubby, kind of one note, can be boomy. But if you really take the time to aim the subwoofer so that it can be in the best possible node, and you can even rake back the subwoofer, adjust your levels properly, there's no question you can reach a lot lower with the same subwoofer. So whether it's for music or for movies, if you can put it against the wall or in a corner, I do feel that's best. So with movies, the best case scenario would be all four corners of the room, followed by opposite corners with two subs. And then if you can only do one, that's okay. We just want to get it in a place where it's not localized. What do I mean by localized? If you close your eyes when you're watching a movie or listening to music, you don't want to be able to just point at the subwoofer and be able to tell where it is. If it's blended properly, the sub should just completely disappear, and it should just add to the effect of whatever you're listening to. With music, I tend to, again, like pairs of subs. I like two subs. If you can put them outside in the corners behind the speakers, that I think is a good place to start. If you have to put it inside the speakers, that's okay too. They have different acoustical properties depending on your room. Sometimes on the outside of your speakers, you get a much more expansive sound stage. Sometimes if you put them in the middle, you can get a deeper sound stage. It's not a hard and fast rule. Acoustics play a role, but I would say these are good starting points. So if you're trying to get more depth or more expansion, these are some things that you can play with. Level, crossover adjustment, and phase. This is a difficult thing for me to just talk about. It's something that if you were here at the store, I could do some adjustments and explain it much more easily. Anybody would be able to hear it. When the sound comes out of your speaker, we want the sub to be in sync with your speaker. If it's out of phase, then you'll get cancellations. That's what the 0 and 180 switch is on the back of the subwoofer. If you found a place where the sub is powerful sounding when you're doing setup, find something that has some tuneful bass, maybe a stand-up acoustic bass, something like that, and then flip that 0 and 180. A lot of times, whichever sound is louder is going to be the one that's in phase. Again, this is a difficult thing for me to describe in a video. Very easy for me to demonstrate in-house. But once you find that in phase position, that's when you can adjust setting the level so it's playing at the same volume as your speaker, not too much, not too low, and then making sure that the crossover point blends. Do not just choose a number arbitrarily because your speakers say they go down to 80 hertz that you set it to 80. That's a recipe for mediocre blending at best. There is some tuning that needs to happen. Acoustic bass is a really, really good way to guide you on this. And whatever sounds the most natural, whatever adds value, doesn't blur detail. I can't say this enough. It's really tough for me to show you in a video. Coming into the store, I can take a subwoofer that's properly blended, turn it up too many clicks, and you'll hear how it gets too boomy. Adjust the crossover so it's too low, and you'll hear a gap in the bass. It takes a lot of experience. Experience definitely helps in this process. We can help guide you in that scenario. Choosing the right sub, again, is also something very important. If you have the wrong sub, you're going to be chasing your tail during the setup process. So how do you connect your subwoofer? The most common way is going to be through an RCA cable or through an XLR cable. That'll come off of your preamp or receiver. These signals are low voltage. They're basically signal only, so that it goes to the amplifier of the subwoofer, and then the subwoofer has to do everything else. Definitely the most common way. A good RCA cable, if you have long runs, something shielded is important. I don't think it's as critical as other cables in the system, but it definitely can make a difference. Another way you can connect is what's called a high-level connection, and that's where you use the amplifier's signal. That's coming off of the speaker cable. I like to use high level a lot because then you're getting the exact same signal that your speaker is using. So when you're blending for music, being able to know that your subwoofer is getting the exact same type of flavor of sound that your speaker is getting helps in the blending process. We're a big REL dealer at Soundings. REL has the advantage of being able to use both connections, so that way we can adjust volumes for movies separately from the volume for music. They have a special filter that allows the high-level connection to sample what the amplifier does, and it just blends seamlessly. I think these connections matter very much because of the long runs that subwoofers typically use. Using a heavier gauge wire or something that's shielded, I think, is really beneficial. Well, thanks so much for watching. I know subwoofers can be kind of a murky topic. I hope this simplifies things for people. As always, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Leave any comments below. I'll do my best to get back to everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.